And I'm so excited. We have Mike Major here, and we're going to talk about HGTV. So, Mike, you got selected to be featured on HGTV. Will you share that story?
Well, it has to do with an 1877 church that had been abandoned 50 years. And my wife and I thought, well, 3 weekends we could fix this up and move in. Well, it took, you can imagine, it took 3 years plus.
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello. This is Jennifer J. Hammond. And I'm so excited. We have Mike Major here, and we're going to talk about HGTV. So, Mike, you got selected to be featured on HGTV. Will you share that story?
Well, it has to do with an 1877 church that had been abandoned 50 years. And my wife and I thought, well, 3 weekends we could fix this up and move in. Well, it took, you can imagine, it took 3 years plus. And but once we were done, we still had the open sanctuary with a bridge that went over to the choir loft, and just a great feeling in the house, including a stained glass skylight out of another church that we restored and put in. And HGTV found out about it. I think they'd seen it in the Chicago Tribune. Came and did a program which had aired for at least 7 years, and so
Wow.
it was a delight to make new friends through that, and contact a lot of other church dwellers around the country.
And the 1877 church, were there challenges? I mean, there must have been if it took you 3 years instead of 3 weekends.
There were challenges. It has the original slate roof on it to this day.
Oh,
However,
wow.
one of the scissor trusses that hold up that heavy slate roof had rotted at the edge and was pushing a brick wall out. So there was a bowing brick wall, and I had to jack up from the ground up 35 feet to the bottom of the beam, lift the beam, and put steel plates to re-extend it. And the wall slowly came back into place over a couple of years. So a lot of learning experience. And I think the biggest thing was it gave us courage to take on bigger projects everywhere. Plus a love for restoration, adapting buildings. So we've done a lot of that. And in addition to my artwork, that's an extension, I think, of creativity at our house.
I was just going to say, and I want to talk about you being an artist, and specifically, I've had so many friends of mine who are in one way or another an artist, whether it's a performing artist like an actor or someone on Broadway, and they have found real estate to be the perfect way to, I want to say, supplement their income, because so often they don't get a residual or something that lasts for years and years after the show is over or after the creation of art. My mother was also an artist, and she created objects, whether it was a painting or sculptures or whatever. And she's long since passed this earth, but it was always one of the challenges, even when I was a child, to figure out how to create that income. So I'd love to talk about that. But before we go there, I wanted to go back to the church, and just if you would talk a little bit about how, from your viewpoint, renovating an 1877 year church was a work of art for you.
It was a work of art in that, first of all, having come from New York for graduate work, we were used to seeing the big open lofts. And so the open space was what attracted me initially. And of course, when you have open space, it's like a blank canvas. You can put in partitions. So in the south end of the sanctuary, I pictured having a multi-story house. And we do have a 5-story back end of the sanctuary that goes up into the attic, in fact, into the scissor trusses, where there's another bedroom. But so it was the open space primarily. And then the idea of, well, how do you celebrate a 22-foot ceiling, a vaulted ceiling? And the idea of a bridge, a walking bridge, came up, and that's what we installed in the sanctuary, so that it's still open, yet you can get right over to the choir loft via a bridge. And the children love it, the grandchildren come and play and just love running back and forth on that bridge right now. So we're having fun with it to this day.
Well, I was going to say, and that's something so incredibly special is to have that kind of art that is art that you can actually use and play in and enjoy. So let's talk a little bit about how real estate did supplement your income as a professional artist. And so often people are looking at this from all sorts of different, I want to say, definitions of an artist, and they want to be able to have some income so they can really focus on what they love, which may not have the income, especially in the beginning.
Yes, and I'm glad to hear that you have friends who have used this tool because it's perfect in that you don't have hands-on 24/7. It's something that you can invest in. So when we have good months, we can invest that money and buy real estate and create a revenue stream, as you are well aware of, that is continuous. And if you do well with the property, if you keep the quality of the properties fairly high, it makes a big difference. They're much easier to manage. You get a better clientele, and so we have built a number of loft spaces throughout the small community where we live in buildings that date back into the 1800s, and we have purchased a Victorian house or two that we've totally renovated and updated, and we're getting great renters. And it's just, of course, everything is full. The demand is very high because supply is limited everywhere, as you know. But I would certainly encourage anyone to consider that a retirement or just an extra stream of income, because you're helping your community and you're also going to have income for the rest of your life if you maintain the property well.
Well, and I agree because, as you know, as an artist, your income sometimes is inconsistent. Sometimes it's a lot of money, sometimes it's a little bit of money, sometimes there's no money. It depends on kind of what phase you're in as an artist, and then, of course, what type of artist. And I have found, in fact, I just recently watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, and I was shocked to find out that he also used real estate as an income source for years and years when he was first starting out as an actor and a bodybuilder, and the things that he loved to do that were his art. And then, but if it weren't for the real estate, which of course then went way up in value in California, that just saved him. So
yes, and really, you're exactly right. In the art field, our income can be very good one month and then nothing another month, and but it's also, I find that it's so comforting not to have to worry about income, and every month there's enough money coming in that I really don't have to work at anything else. But I absolutely love painting and drawing and doing sculpture, and so it's just a real blessing to do that. I would encourage everyone to consider investing in real estate, and so we're on the same page.
Well, good. And I was going to say, and you talked to me a little bit about this church, this 1877 church being a historic building. One of the things that I have found, and from Washington, D.C. to, all sorts of different areas of the country, historical buildings, we want to preserve them so that we can have a lot of that history and that architecture that we're not getting in the newer buildings. But also we found, like in Washington, D.C., we have the Historical Society that everything has to be approved through. Now, I would say that there are some people that actually nickname the Historical Society the Hysterical Society, meaning that, every little thing has to be approved, and it becomes, a huge delay, and people become frightened, or I wouldn't say hesitant to take on a historic property for renovations. How did you overcome those kind of challenges?
We are not on the registry, the National Historic Registries, which makes a big difference. And I'll tell a little side story here, if I may.
Yes.
After falling in love with restoration of buildings, I found a house that looked like Frank Lloyd Wright in a neighboring town. And sure enough, It was a Frank Lloyd Wright house that had fallen into disrepair. I did a drawing of the house as it would be restored. And it ended up in the hands of a young man who would later become head of a foundation that would spend $5.8 million restoring that house. And I was on the board as we restored the Westcott house, which was in the Bosmouth portfolio because it was one of Frank Lloyd Wright's favorite houses that he ever designed. And one thing leads to another, but there were, of course, the Conservancy, Frank Lloyd Wright Conservancy insisted on specific materials. Even the wax or paraffin paint on the walls had to be chemically analyzed so that we had the same paint. So that's the opposite. I mean, that's the extreme end of what you can run into with restoration. But in a historic district, I'm in one now where my studio is in a small town of Urbana. We're in a historic district, and we do have to be careful about making sure we submit anything that we want to do on the exterior of the building. But it really does protect. It's a good thing. It protects the legacy of the building because these buildings are going to be here for a long, long time, way beyond when I'm going to be here. So it's not all bad. It's you're doing yourself a favor if you get involved with saving an old building. It's just a wonderful thing.
Well, and I do believe that if you communicate with a historical society, whether it's on the National Register or whether it's a local one, if you communicate, you can usually resolve the challenges because sometimes that the whatever it is that you're looking for isn't available. And so you might need a newer version or something, a different one that, and maybe it's available, but it's super, super expensive. So
Right.
I have found that usually if you just communicate, you can find a solution, right?
Yeah, everything can be negotiated, and people are usually reasonable. They find a middle territory that is agreeable to both sides. So you're right. It's just a matter of not giving up. If there's a bump in the road, just keep looking for other solutions and come up with one because there always is one. So it's, yeah. Uh-huh.
Let's talk about your journey. So you're obviously, for anyone who's watching and just not listening, you're actually sitting in front of some of your statues. Will you talk a little bit about your art?
Yes, I started doing sculpture about 30 years ago and have done over 200 bronze sculptures. Now, some of these are limited edition, small pieces. Some of them are very large public monuments around the country. The founder of the Mayo Clinic at Rochester, Minnesota, Abraham Lincoln, for his first, what became Veterans Administration. It was called Soldiers and Sailors Asylum early on, but that was in Dayton, Ohio. A huge Lincoln for them. Another Lincoln for where he gave a campaign speech in 1859. And William Tecumseh Sherman for his hometown, the drummer boy of Chickamauga for his hometown. So a lot of history sculptures and some abstract sculptures as well. So I've just had a delightful career I feel like I'm a kid still playing in the sandbox. Actually, it's so much fun. I had published 14 books of drawings. I also like drawing. And in fact, drawing is the foundation for sculpture. It's just like the piano is to all of music. It's kind of the foundation instrument. But learning how to do figure drawing very well was what helped me become a sculptor, to keep proportions correct and whatever. And so I recently published a book, Ink, Paint, and Bronze, to share a story about how one gets to be successful in the studio, because it's difficult when you don't have a mentor. And
Yes.
And I'm sure in real estate you had mentors, you had other people that help you, and it's harder in the fine arts area because artists sometimes are not as communicating about their secrets. And I wanted to share everything I know about succeeding in the studio.
And first of all, you are so right, especially as a woman. I've been in real estate now 28 years, and people were not very communicative, and they were not collaborating when I first got into real estate. everybody was very much about competing, and there were some people who were not. I'm going to even use the word bullies. When I first got into real estate, they were not nice. I mean, to the point where they were like, "Hey, Jennifer, walk fast down the stairs and I'll trip you so that you can't go out and show that property." And I was like, wow. I mean, even the joke of, hurting me so that I couldn't be successful in real estate, it was like, that's not funny. I don't find that funny at all. And I also saw my mother struggle so much. We grew up in Key West, Florida, which was a fun place with other artists, but even I observed exactly what you said. The other artists were not always so helpful and interested in sharing. And she actually taught at our Florida Keys Community College, our little college down there in Key West. And it was still amazing that there were a lot of artists who wouldn't collaborate with her. Now, that was obviously years ago, and people are so much better now. I'd say even in real estate, people are so much more interested in collaborating than they were years ago. But it's so important. And I'm so glad. I hope you're watching the video and you can see some of your amazing sculptures that are behind you. But also, will you talk a little bit about your book?
Yes. Well, the book has two parts. The first part includes 9 uplifting values for creative people. And actually, it goes beyond just creative people. It goes anyone who wants to work and live independently. These are lessons based on stories, real life stories of my own, becoming an artist and maintaining life in the studio. And I share these stories and these values, such as overcoming fear of failure, such as finances. How do you manage finances? And it talks about investing in real estate too, and other and other examples of the kinds of blockages that you're going to run into if you're working independently as an artist or following a passion in some other field. So I think it's relevant to any creative person. I mean, in real estate, you're creative. You have to be creative. And the creativity is a wonderful thing because you learn to put opposites together. You learn to come up with novel ideas to solve, to find solutions. And so you know that very well, that it really takes a creative mind to succeed in any field. And this book is about creativity. Yes.
And I
the
think,
second part of, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say creativity is, I think, something that most people don't realize is such a huge ingredient to success in any field. But I remember one time having this person, something dramatic happened, and my clients were freaked out. Her clients were freaked out. The other agent was freaked out. Everybody was just standing there, just freaked out because there was water dripping everywhere. And I immediately was like, we do this and then with this and this and this. And the other agent, after all the dust settled and I handled the chaos and the confusion, she said to me, how can you be so creative? How did you come up with solutions? She said, I can't believe you didn't call, this person or that person. And I said, no, you just fall right into your creativity and you can create solutions if you'll allow yourself to be that and to not be afraid also to fail, because sometimes that fear of failure prevents you from being creative, when the only solution, like that, I won't go into the long story, but the only solution in some situations is to be completely out of the box creative. Otherwise, you're not going to solve whatever has come up.
Yes, very well put. Very well put. Yeah. And so you have to be fast on your feet. You have to be trust yourself. Have confidence in your ability to find those solutions. And that's what the building blocks include: confidence. And in the art field, it's repetition, it's experience, productivity. If you're very productive in your field, then you have more confidence and you have the ability to solve problems.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're already out of time, so I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you if they want to find out more about your art and your book. Where do they go?
Mike Major Fine Art or Mike Major Sculpture Photos online, and you'll come up with lots of pictures of my sculpture. My new book is available on Amazon, hardback, paperback, and soon to be audiobook. the first art book published that's audio that is accompanied by online photographs so that people can actually listen to me reading the book and look at the artwork at the same time. So
Well
thank you for that.
done. Yeah, that's very well
Uh,
done. We'll make sure we put the links in there as well for people. And as you
Thank
know,
you.
I'm always looking for the silver lining in everything. So I'm going to ask you to lift your voice and say yay with me as we go off the air. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Yay!
Thank you, Mike. What a pleasure.